I started playing when I was 4 years old. I'm an only child, and my parents, they didn't have any soccer background at all. So my cousins played, and I think that's what kind of started the inspiration for me to play. Seeing them play, that's just kind of the first memories I have are soccer. So I knew probably around the age of 6, 7 that I wanted to play professionally. And that's always just kind of been my northern star, so to speak, to guide me throughout my journey, throughout my career, and then, obviously making it into the professional realm. So yeah, just soccer has always been kind of like the center of my universe. All the decisions and things that I do in my life are catered to the sport. So, but yeah, of course, it's always just kind of interesting how it started, because you hear of so many people who grew up in soccer backgrounds, or had a mother or a father that played, or even had ties with national team or things like that. So the fact that I didn't really have any of that, and I grew up actually in a city where American football was the most popular. So being that I'm from Green Bay, it's the home of the Green Bay Packers, and you could be really anywhere in the world and everybody will know the Green Bay Packers. So growing up kind of in the shadows of Lambeau Field and having everything around you be very American football oriented, soccer was kind of on the bottom of the totem pole. There were other sports that everybody would do that was more popular, and soccer just wasn't as common. I mean, even the selection of club teams and, where you could play, or coaching, private sessions, so much of that was not available to me. Where now, being as a player and also as a mentor, as a private coach, there's so many things that are accessible to players now, whether they're younger, older. So it's just kind of looking back at when I first started playing soccer, the game has evolved and has changed so much, and there's just so many more resources available. But it's kind of cool to say that, where I started and when I started, and how the game was evolving at that time, the fact that I made it where I am today is incredible, just because of the lack of resources that I had, not being in a family that, knew really anything about soccer. So it's just kind of cool to see where, my journey has kind of taken me. So, but yeah, that's kind of the beginning story part of it. So typically, before you enter university, you either play in a high school, which is kind of like how you call it, maybe a secondary school before you go to college, and or you are with a club team. And part of the year, in the springtime, usually you're with that school team, and then in the fall you're with your club team. And this is where you travel to other states, you do a lot of traveling, compete in different leagues, play against other club teams. So it's having that club experience is very similar to the professional club, how it is kind of structured, but obviously there's no contracts, there's no money involved. But it's, you do have to try out. Sometimes they have multiple tryouts in order to make the team. Sometimes you're playing against girls that are from different cities or different states. There's some people that might even be international, and maybe they had moved and they're playing for that club. So the structure and the organization is similar. It's just obviously you're not getting paid. So playing club soccer before the college just kind of gets you prepared in that environment. Having to kind of work for your spot and, adding the travel aspect to it. You're not just playing, 20 minutes, 30 minutes from where you live. Sometimes you're traveling an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours to play a match. And you're only 13, 14 years old. So that started out when I was probably 10. And then I went to college when I was 18, 19. And played my 4 years in college. And then, being in the college is nice because it really, there's such a small statistic that say that they play Division I college soccer. You have Division I, Division II, Division III, and then you have divisions that are even below that. So to say that you make it in the Division I, you're now in a smaller category of players throughout the United States. So to have that on your resume is obviously a really good thing, just because sometimes Division I schools are hard to get into. And then even amongst all the Division I schools, you have different conferences, and amongst those, it just works its way even up the pyramid even more. So it's all kind of starting to shape and mold you as a person, as a player, and kind of getting you ready. Like, okay, if you can succeed really well at the college level, then maybe you have the opportunity to play professionally. So I knew when I was younger, I knew I wanted to play professionally. So already going into college, I already had that mind frame that, okay, when my 4 years are up, like, I want to play professional. So I had a coach my senior year who helped me with that professional process and contacting clubs and speaking with coaches. So I started my professional career back in 2015. So I left school half a year early to join my first professional club. And then it just I was able to, after the season was done, I had a small knee injury. And then when I came back to have surgery, I was able to finish my last half year of college and graduate. So it's nice that I was able to pursue my dreams, but still be able to graduate and get that degree under my belt, especially because, with soccer being such a contact sport and anything could happen at any time, it's always good to just kind of have that backup plan. And, if something were to happen, you have school or something else you're interested in to fall back on. But yeah, it was, playing at the college level, it was a very difficult journey at times, especially when you deal with coaches. I think they really can make or break your experience with that team. And that means at any level, whether you're youth, professional, college, wherever, amateur. But then finding the right coach is kind of also what really, really helped me turn pro, because she used to play professionally. So she really helped me with my my pro trials and just kind of getting my name out there. And sometimes that's what it comes down to, is, who and at the right place and at the right time. I think I already had my mind made up on that opinion when I played only in the United States. And to be honest, I didn't experience that big of a difference. I mean, when I was playing in college, we got everything that the men had access to. I mean, everything I would say was the same, at least to my knowledge. When we would have games, our training facilities, our gym facility, the gear, the equipment, everything was equal. And of course, when you follow the U.S. women's national team, and over the last couple of years, you know, they were really being vocal about the equal rights and equal pay, and you know, they were winning the World Cup and making equivalent amount of money to when the men would only win a quarterfinal match. So of course you see these big differences there, but for me personally, what I was experiencing in college and playing in some of the semi-professional leagues in the United States, and even having experience in the NWSL, there wasn't too much change. I think at the end of the day, when it came to the professional league here in the US, if you weren't selling tickets, of course, it's hard to get money back into the club. And for the men's professional league, the MLS, majority of their matches, they have over 10,000, 15,000 people at their game. And that's with really any team. There's always been that support, and the league's been around a lot longer. So I could understand why the contracts and the salary on the men's side, at least in the professional realm in the United States, why there was a little bit of that difference. But when I really started to kind of experience that gap was when I came to Mexico, and you know, seeing the locker room that we had for Femenil compared to the men's team. I mean, I almost didn't believe it at first. I thought it was a joke, because in college, we never experienced anything like that. And we had a very nice locker room. The guys had a very nice locker room. Everything was equal. And, you know, even when I was with Portland and Chicago, those were the two professional teams here, you know, everything I would have said was pretty equal. And then coming to Pumas and seeing, you know, we had to share our grass field with sub-18, sub-20, both men and women. And then the first team of the guys' Pumas team, they had their grass field, but then nobody was allowed to use it. They had their own locker room. They had, you know, sauna, steam room. I mean, it was just night and day difference what the guys had compared to what we had. And I just felt like even when we would have games at Olímpico Universitario, we would always get the worst times to play at. Like, who wants to come on a Saturday at 12 o'clock when the sun is at its strongest and the stadium has no shade? But then the guys would get like Friday, 7 o'clock, or Saturday, 7 o'clock, when, you know, everybody's out of work and you have all this day to prepare for the game. I really saw, it was a big eye-opener for me to see all the differences, and not including the salary difference. You know, there was so many things, but I feel like those were the main things that stood out to me. Yeah, it was a big difference, but it really made you appreciate the things that were given to me here, because I think, of course, you always are wanting and expecting more, and sometimes when you are put in a different place, a different country, whole different culture, you really see how sometimes things aren't so bad because of the conditions that we dealt with for Liga MX Femenil in Mexico. So it was just a big eye-opener, and you know, I only hope that it continues to grow and it becomes more equal, and that more more opportunities are given to the women, you know, just because they're expected to do the same at the end of the day. You know, they have to give up time with their families. They're spending pretty much 11 months out of the year, you know, gone. Our off season is actually very, very short. It's one of the shortest in all professional leagues. I would say the same. I think there were always people in the US who, of course, will make comments and, you know, be very anti-feminine in sports, just like, you know, I'm sure there are comments in Mexico. But then I feel like there was so many fans that were even more supportive in Mexico than I think in the US. I mean, maybe it was just at Pumas, because Pumas has such a big history, and being in the capital, I think it creates all this history and this fan base. And the previous professional club that I was at in Chicago, of course, is a big city, but are so many other professional teams that make up Chicago. You have the Chicago Bulls basketball, you have the Chicago Bears American football, you have the Chicago Blackhawks professional hockey. And then of course Chicago Fire, which is the men's soccer team. There's just so many other sport teams that get the attention, and I felt like the women's professional soccer kind of was not where it should be. So coming from that and then coming into Mexico City and just having, you know, people everywhere with a Pumas jersey, or, you know, they knew who you were if they saw me in public or saw somebody in public that played for the team, and they would we really feel that their whole life was evolved around Pumas and Pumas football. So I think it was just really cool to experience that shift. But I think in general, to answer your question, I think it was relatively the same. I mean, there's you hear it all the time in the US. There's people that are, you know, why do women need to be getting paid as much? And there's always that constant battle, I'd say. Soccer is very, very popular there. And whether it's women or men, they will support you. Even in Texas, Florida, even kind of on the East Coast, soccer is very, very popular. But I think in the Midwest, kind of like in Chicago and in that general region, the climate is sometimes the climate is not the best throughout the whole year. So I think that's where soccer kind of hits a little bit. That's why it doesn't fall at the top. It's not as popular, where, you know, hot places like California, Texas, Florida, those states and kind of the teams that are from there, the professional clubs that are in that environment, they thrive really well and they get a lot of that support. So I think it also depends on where. Just like I'm sure in Mexico, you know, maybe in a smaller city, it's just not as popular, but you go to a bigger city like Monterrey or, you know, Mexico City, and you will get all the support, where if maybe you were in, you know, a smaller state, smaller city, it's just hard to get that equal support. I think, and I mean this in a good way, the culture in Mexico, you'll notice that the players will do anything to win. And I mean anything, whether that's kicking the ball purposely out of bounds and letting the ball roll so you have to waste time to go get the ball, or standing in front, you know, just little things like that. I think growing up in the US, we never learned game management like that. It's something that I'm very open to, just because that's what I was used to in the United States. Like already when I was starting to compete at like 10 years old, when I was playing for a club, you were competing against other girls that were from sometimes a different part of the state. So already you were competing against people that you didn't know. And then as you worked your way up to college, you were now competing against people from all over the country. And then of course you had foreign players. So to me, I always looked at it like I was always up for the challenge, because it just molded you into a better person, a better player. And why not compete with other people from different backgrounds, whether that was from the same state, the same country, a different part of the country, a different part of the continent. I just felt like I was already used to competing, and I never looked at it as, well, why do they have to be here? Or I never looked at it in a negative way. So I just thought it was so cool to be going neck and neck with maybe a girl that wasn't from the United States, or or was from a different part of the United States. I think it was so cool to just compete against players where they grew up with a different version of soccer, just like I grew up with a different version of soccer. So I think it's so cool to have, teams like America or Monterrey, Pachuca. They're getting, of course, Pumas too. They're getting, players from outside of Mexico. And I think it's making the league grow. I mean, at the beginning, when the United States had their professional league, I'm sure there is a lot of players that were probably all American, but then that changed so fast. Kind of like what I was experiencing at Pumas was that, they were obviously trying to get more Americans on the team, and I think the group of refuerzos that I was signed with, we had at least, I think there might have been 10 of us, but at least there was like 7 that were Mexican American. So, I mean, the team was about to change, because before there was just only 2 Americans. It was Ariel, and then they added like 11 more people, and the 7 of us were also American, or some of us were Mexican American. So I think that was another thing too, is that they were making that step to try to, add foreigners, not only to Pumas, but to the league in general. But I also think that a lot of the clubs like Pumas, they were not open to helping those foreign players, if that makes sense. But it's just, I think being able to say, hey, I want, foreign players on my team is one thing, but then to be able to help them and, understand that, you might have help with the language, or you might have to find a place for them to live. Like, there's just things that are a little bit different when it comes to having foreign players, live in one of the biggest cities in the world, that you're going to need, just things are going to be a little bit different. Not that they're treated differently, everyone's still treated equal, but I also think that it's one thing to say you want foreign players, but then, actions speak louder than words. That's the best way I can put it. So yeah, so right now I'm still looking for a new club. I have some options that I'm working on my agent with. So hopefully something will be soon. That could be in Mexico, that could be in the US, or, that maybe could be in Europe. Would I be opposed to coming back to play in Mexico? Certainly not. Like I think it would be cool to experience the league again where it is now, you know, maybe from another team, and just kind of see how that plays out. But of course, there's, you know, things that I've missed back in the United States, and to play in the league here, it's just that's always kind of been my main focus. So I'm just kind of right now leaving it in God's hands, and you know, what is meant to be will be, and what is not won't. So just trying to stay patient, and you know, understanding of when that next opportunity will come, and just being ready. Really, that's the only thing I can do, is, you know, kind of control what I can control. And in the meantime, I do a lot of private coaching. So it's kind of a cool place to be in, because I'm still in my career, but I'm helping other players in their career. So things that they're going through are things that I went through when I was their age. So, you know, some of my youngest players are 9, 10 years old. And some of my oldest players I work with are, you know, 20, 21 years old. So that range is such a important stage in their careers. So the fact that I'm in the highest stage of my career, but I'm still learning about the game, learning about myself, and you know, there's still things that, you know, I find something new every day, which I love. So to be able to be in that position, and then also help, you know, the young men and women that I work with pursue their dreams and their goals, it's kind of a cool place to be in. It's pretty rewarding. Sometimes they keep you on your toes, they surprise you, they say things that are, or their perspective on things is just, it's cool. So in reality, you know, yes, they're learning from me, but what they really don't know is I'm kind of learning from them. So, you know, they've given me a really cool perspective to look at, and, you know, secretly they kind of are my motivation to keep playing. So, you know, whatever team that I'm representing next, you know, I will kind of wear their names, you know, on my sleeve, on my heart, because they, like I said, you know, I'm helping them, but really they're also helping me. So, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. And, you know, just like I said, continuing to keep my body, you know, in the best shape and ready to go. And when that next opportunity comes, it's, you know, just kind of staying positive and being open to that new chapter.